It's time now to have a go at fitting the engine sump guard. So this has come from a company, I've got a feeling they're in Bulgaria, called Sump Guard Metal. Very kindly sponsoring us with this project. It's slightly different to the normal ones they sell. The normal ones have air vents in it. It's also got a cutout for the oil drain plug. Now, neither of which we need. The air vents are simply going to act as big scoops, scooping up the sand, getting it wedged in on the underside. There might be some heat transfer going on, but also just, stuff just generally being scooped up, wedged in, and could act as a sort of bit of a brake, stop the vehicle moving forward. And the oil drain plug, there's a bolt attached to it, it's just going to get ripped off. So we didn't need that. So we've asked for these special smooth versions, as I call them. Much more suitable. If we hit anything, we will slide over them. So that's kind of the plan. I'll show you the results of not having one. I'll swap the camera around and show underneath. Unfortunately, thanks to the complete incompetence of FedEx, this was ordered, 4-6 weeks before our reconnaissance trip back in April. Managed to get to the UK, and then FedEx lost it. How the heck do you lose something there's 1 meter and a bit square in all directions? And the box that it came in, I do not know. Anyway, so I then had to speak to Sump Guard Metal and say, can you send me a replacement? Unfortunately, even though we'd sent it down to southern Spain, ready for our crossing into Morocco, still then, thanks to FedEx, arrived late. So it only arrived the day that we travelled back from Morocco back into Spain. So absolutely useless company to deal with. So yeah, Pete, our mechanic, had to then fashion something to try and protect the underside. But as you'll see, it only did so much. So here we are on the underside of a Mark II Ford Focus. This is the engine sump. That's the bit you've got to protect. If you crack that, luckily it's a steel one, so it will bend to some degree before splitting. If that was an alloy sump and anything hit it, it would just crack immediately. And then all the oil will come out. Of course, as soon as the oil has come out, you lose lubrication. That's it. It's kind of game over. So you've got to catch that quick. There'll be an oil pressure warning light will come on. But trying to fix alloy in remote parts of the world, middle of the Sahara Desert, little bush mechanics and all that kind of stuff, not impossible. So everything you really want is steel. So that did actually survive because Pete managed to sort of basically fabricate some sort of, literally like a metal washing up bowl, a shallow one that just protected that. What he didn't or wasn't able to do was protect this, and you can see it looks like it's got corrosion on it there, and it probably actually has got corrosion. It's all a bit kind of higgledy-piggledy. So basically this is the lower rear gearbox mount. There will be a couple of mounts, I think. There'll be one here and there'll be probably one up under there somewhere. So this one took a wallop and absolutely shattered. It's alloy, absolutely shattered. He did his best to try and fix it in the field, but it wasn't going to happen. He had to limp his way out, get to a main road, and then once on the main road, with all this held together with kind of ratchet straps and cable ties and all sorts, holding the whole of the gearbox up, managed to get himself to Aziz in Zagora in southern Morocco. But again, finding an alloy welder was not an easy task. So what we have to do is ensure that and what this sump guard will do should protect that as well. It should protect the whole of the underside of this. So yeah, vitally important that sump guards are fitted. Now they're not as thick as I would like. I don't know if you can see that with the light. If I try and... It's very thin. It weighs about 13.5 kilograms all in. So, yeah, a bit of weight, but not that much. 2 mil is all it is. Personally, I'd sooner have 3 mil. That would put it up to 20 kilograms, which again is still not that much. So it's better than nothing. But I have asked Sump Guard Metal if they are able to make a 3 mil version. I think as this project grows and more of these have to be made, I think we'll be fairly insistent, or we're going to have to find somebody here in the UK to make a 3 mil version, because, you know, there isn't much strength to it. Being flat, there's a couple of indents here, a couple of indents to try and give it some sort of rigidity. There's a fold here and a fold here, so it's the folds that sort of add strength. If this was to be sort of almost like corrugated, it would add an awful lot more strength to it, but it's not. Better than nothing. But yeah, I'd prefer 3 mil. These are the bolts. Haven't quite figured out what goes where yet. I believe they're for the rears, possibly the fronts, and I don't even know what these two do. I've not been able to find any fitting instructions as yet. I probably lost them on bringing them back to the UK. But yeah, I'll offer it up and see what we can do to get this sump guard fitted to the underside of there. So the first thing you need to do is apply the handbrake fully. Don't worry about it being in gear, makes no odds. It's a front wheel drive car and the wheels will be off the ground. Next thing you want to do, chock both wheels. Then I used a trolley jack and I placed the trolley jack under here, right where this is about the center of the vehicle, and this is sort of at the rear end on this sort of huge great cross member here, or subframe, just near where the rear lower gearbox mount is. Once I'd done that and I jacked it right up, I then placed axle stands on each side, and what you'll find, there are cutouts of where to place the axle stand in here, and then on the opposite side there's sort of marks. It's all a bit beaten up here, but that's where that goes. So it's quite tricky to fit. So the first thing I think I'm going to do is fit the rear bolts. What you've got, if I can find them, is this piece and quite a big bolt with a big fat washer. So working at the back, so as I mentioned before, that is the shattered rear gearbox mount, and this is the subframe area, and you can see lower wishbone, drive shaft. So it's this bit here you want to look at. So I'm now going to kind of twist myself, so I'm now kind of facing upside down. So the front of the car is that way, the back of the car is that way. Now I fitted one into this hole, very difficult when looking through a camera lens, that hole there. This is the other hole you want to do. So what you've got to do, and it's really tricky, you don't want to lose the thing, maybe slightly easier from this side because there is a big hole here. This side, there is nothing, so you just have to poke it through the hole. So I'll try and demonstrate what I did. Basically, I slid this in. Now, it's kind of getting jammed there, so I keep kind of rotating it until such time as it feels like it's gonna wiggle its way in. Oh, might not do it at all this side. Now you're probably going to need something like a small flat blade screwdriver to catch this thing, because what you don't want, there's no way of putting your hand in the back and grabbing it. This is a hollow piece with just a hole there and a hole there. So once it's lost inside, you're going to spend ages trying to hook it out. So I ended up having to do this and kind of wiggle my way around. There's obviously, you know, bits of metal and ridges and stuff inside that would only allow me... Ah, there you go. Right. So that's the way. And there it is. But it's very, very tricky. So I've got to try and now wiggle this round until such time as I can see the hole. Can you see? Let me get the torch. There you go. Okay, but be very, very careful and very patient, because if you push this thing up inside, now, because you can't get your hand behind it, all you're doing is using the weight of the bracket itself to try and apply a little bit of downward pressure. See, that didn't really work. A little bit of downward pressure on the threads while you're trying to screw it in. Quite tricky one-handed. Let's see if I can do it. I'm just kind of gently turning. There you go. I think I got it. Yeah, it's engaged. Now that should be locked in. And at some point, as you're tightening this up, that inner black piece will obviously rotate with it until such time as it locks against something. Yeah. So there's the one there and one there. Now the way the sump guard is orientated, this is the underside, okay? So as you can see, it's got sort of a bit of a sort of a dish to it like that. And then the engine will sit somewhere here. These two slots here now engage into those bolts, okay? Right, I'm lying on my back. As you can see, I've left the wheels attached. You can see the axle stands, and I've even propped a trolley jack under there as well, just for extra bit of security. So I'm lying on my back with the sump guard, basically, and I can now raise and lower it using my knees. So can you see those two bolts just above my feet that I'm going to try and engage that in there? Hopefully you can see that. Obviously the washer's got to remain on the underside. And then I can slot that in like that. Okay? And then you lift it up. And what you're looking for, there's two slots here. Now what they would have had before, I don't know if it was in all of them. There might have been a bit of plastic trim along here, but obviously that has clean disappeared because we took this vehicle to the desert. But what you've got are these little rubber bungs, and they fit. Can you see those two holes there? Now there might be one in each, or there might have just been one. So there's two there, two in the middle, and two on the outside edge. So what you've got to do now is raise this up, and what you're looking at is actually, you want to do the same sort of thing with these three slots, and you've got to put a bolt and one of the little brackets in, or sort of like a rectangular nut. Now that looks like the position it should be in. However, I have noticed one problem. So once it's in, you would then bring this forward so that the bolt that's hanging down, if I can find one, yep, there'll be a bolt hanging here, but actually it would be down here, engaged into this slot here. It wouldn't be there because obviously that would just fall straight through. So you would bring the whole sump guard forward and it would lock to one side. The problem is though, looking at it, and I'm pretty sure I've got it symmetrical, sort of equidistant between, this is sort of the base of the radiator, and you can see some of the sort of the core of the radiator. That's probably an that's an intercooler, air conditioning radiator, and the main coolant radiator behind. If I line it up, so you've got roughly the same distance from there to this edge, and then the sump guard to that edge, it kind of suggests that it's that outer slot, the slot one in from the end, and then in the middle it's the left-hand slot. The problem I found though, look, that will not go up through there. However, it does go through there. So let me have a jig around. What I might have to do is just drill those three slightly bigger. I don't want to, because obviously as soon as you make a hole bigger, it weakens it. But just make sure I've got it correct and it's not actually the outer ones that do already fit. Right, I'm pretty sure I'm correct. Once the bolts are in here with the washer on, the washer will appear through that hole like that. You then push this sump guard forward, assuming this bolt stays still, see? So then it would be in that position. And then you slide the sump guard to the left. So now that would lock in that slot there, which does suggest that it's that hole, which is the one that doesn't fit. Okay, that one does, but it will take the sump guard way off to one side. If the bolt ends up in this position here, then taking that and that, assuming they are equidistant on either end of this bracket at the base of the radiator, then that would make this sump guard symmetrical. So I am going to have to drill out that one, and that one. So as you face the vehicle from the front, it's the left, and the left one. Right, what I've done is I've taken an 8.5mm drill bit and I've just drilled this out. But you've got to be very, very careful because it is about 8mm. So it's going to snatch. I could actually push the drill right up through. So what you want to do is just get it fired up, hold it very carefully with both hands, and then just do that. That's all you need. And that will allow me to fit. Yeah, so I've just taken a tiny slither off, 0.5mm. Now, from the underside, as you do up the nut, you're going to rotate it clockwise. So this bracket that sits behind, yeah, will also want to rotate clockwise. So, yeah, that way. So of course, if I leave it in that position, it's going to want to rotate out like that. So I don't want to do that because it's got nothing for it to wedge against. So what I want to do is place it this way. So as I place the nut in it, yeah, and turn it clockwise, the rotational force of that bracket will also be clockwise, and it will wedge itself up against this piece here. Now, unfortunately, there were only 2 of those sort of rectangular nuts in the kit. So I've just emailed Sump Guard Metal and said, look, you know, there's some bits missing, can you send me them? But that would be the same. You want it to be that way round. Yeah. So the long side is to the right, and I'm not quite sure what's going to happen there, because that's going to kind of stick out. That's going to rotate that way and come out, so I guess it's going to have to be that way, which is not brilliant, but I suppose it is applying some rotational force. So that's what we're going to do, is fit those, I think put the backs in again and then fit the fronts. Hopefully you can see by showing the torch down there. I've re-engaged those slots with those 2 silver bolts. I've fitted that one. That's going to turn clockwise, yep, with the little bracket sticking out that way. There would be one there, it's not in the kit, but I'll fit this for you anyway just to show. And that one also with that rectangular kind of nut to the left. Then you lift it up and you've got these holes here. So that's how the nuts and the washers get through. Now you've got to bring everything forward. Okay, so it fits. You've brought it forward, so the bolt is basically gone down that slot, and then forward. And you can see here, there's the rubber bung, quite a big gap to the left. There's the rubber bung, no gap to the right. So now you have to slide the sump guard to, very difficult one-handed, to the left. Okay, so that slot should now appear as you're looking down the car in the bottom left-hand corner. That one hasn't quite engaged. I'll see if I can do that two-handed and then do these up. Okay, bit of a two-handed effort. Got to grab that side, make sure nothing's fouling it, and give it a good shove that way. Once in, 13mm socket on a bit of a extension bar, just so that I'm not smacking my knuckles against there. There's that one done up, and you can see now quite clearly the washer's come through the hole, slid down there, and then gone over to the left, and you can see the rotational force of that behind. As I turn it to the right, it tries to go to the right. You can quite clearly see if I do it slowly. There you go. See, that's why it has to be that way around. There you go. Oh, that's nice and solid. There would be obviously like another one which would appear there, so I'll have to pull it apart and put that third one. You're going to need all three. You want as much protection as possible, or much security as possible. Now it might be just for added strength and security. One, I would probably put a split washer or a star washer on the underside of that, because what you don't want is with the vibration that working its way loose. I would probably also put a load of thread locker. So that's a Loctite locker. It's like a sort of like a very syrupy kind of liquid that you put on the threads, and it locks it into that back piece. So that's another added bit of security. You would not want this to become detached while driving along. Can you imagine if it sort of came off and dropped down and acted as a forward scoop? That would, yeah, potentially do quite a bit of damage. Now, looking at this, yes, I can do that up nice and tight, but with vibration, this could, the sump guard could slightly move to the right, meaning that that bolt now appears in the middle of the fore and aft slot. So if you hit something like in the desert, that is going to get, that little ledge there is going to get pushed back, yeah, meaning the bolt could end up in that hole as this goes backwards, yeah, that hole there could end up, and then the whole thing could fall off. So what I'd be inclined to do is get a nut and bolt in there. Maybe a bit more difficult in that one. You could probably get that one from your hand around the back. And then that should hopefully prevent, because it's right up, tucked up hard against the edge, prevent this sump guard being moved backwards, because it will be locked in place. You need a big washer on each side. Well, maybe not on the back, but you'll certainly need a big washer this side. Just as an extra bit of security to stop that thing moving. However, that said, one was fitted to the grey Focus that we had on the recce trip, and I don't recall there being any problems. Working my way to the back of the sump guard, there you can see the rear wheels. These are the slots. One there, and it's a 17mm, and again that will have that sort of rectangular nut, as it were, that I've put into the back. Oh, feel that one moving. Let's just do that up. Hopefully, there you go. What you're hearing there's a lot of sort of scraping and graunching noises with the sand. So do that up nice and tight. Again, I would put a split washer or a star washer on the underside of the bolt head, and probably get some thread lock on there just to ensure that that is less likely to vibrate loose. So there we go. That's it. Like I say, that's missing there. Now, in the kit came 2 additional bolts, small bolts. Should have been some washers, and looking at the diagram, they go in here with a big washer. There's nothing here to attach it to. The inner wing has all kind of come loose, so I can only imagine the plastic inner wing, you would secure that there, but no need at the moment. But that's going to add a considerable amount of protection to the engine sump, which is here, to that gearbox mount, which is probably in this kind of area here. It's not going to be the toughest. You know, we are only looking at a bracket on the underside of the radiator, so it's not a big heavy duty structural piece. It's just a bracket to support the radiator. However, it's better than nothing, and will add that extra 2mm of steel to the underside, and being nice and smooth when you hit a rock, should hopefully just slide all the way down. Nothing to catch. No air vents, and no oil drain plug flap, which is probably around there somewhere. So there you go. Hopefully that was of use. Would have slightly reduced ground clearance, not by much, but definitely a vital bit of kit if you want to take one of these cars across the Sahara Desert and tackle the original Dakar rally route. Cheers for now.